Hey there, welcome to the channel. So today I want to take a look at some of the most active stocks on Friday. All right, if we look, I'm just going to go through like CNBC here. They kind of talk out companies that were making headlines. So we'll just kind of start there and then we'll go through all the stocks. So Pinterest here, looks like their shares went up 9% because some company took a stake in them. So the idea there might be that sometimes companies will take a large stake before they actually make an offer to acquire a company. Other times they'll take a large stake to, get someone on the board, et cetera, and get some kind of control. But the other thing is, there's really kind of a risk there. So it just depends. If you were sitting there thinking like, oh, I want to buy Pinterest because someone else is buying it, maybe that would make sense. It could be. But the other side, if you were short Pinterest, then there's a risk that, oh, something might change significantly. So you'd run to cover that type of a thing. Then the next one is really, I'm going to lump these all together. You have all the financials here. So basically with Citicorp leading it, it rallied 13% when second quarter earnings beat on top and bottom lines. So Citigroup is only one of the four major banks that reported earnings this week to surpass expectations on revenue. All right, so there you go. And then Wells Fargo, some of it did better. This guy, State Street, BNY, US Bank Corp. So basically, all the financials really kind of had a pop. So one of the things about the financials is that I don't really buy it. I think that what's going on here is that if you look at it right now, we're most likely going into recession, right? So what does that mean? Going into recession or in recession means there's going to be less economic activity, and therefore less economic activity in particular is less to loan to consumers, right? So that means less car loans, less loans for other stuff, furniture, blah, 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 less loans for houses. All that stuff declines. However, what's happening right now is you can see that the 10-year here has gone up to 3%. So if you're a bank and you're looking at it and you're paying people, they have not kept up with what they pay people in savings accounts. So that's still like minuscule. But the point is, so whatever savings that, they have in there, they're able to lend it out at a huge net interest margin. So that's one of the benefits that we have right now. The increasing rates increases the net interest margin that banks have to lend out. So right now, it very well may be that you can see that it's one of the benefits to the financials right now. Now, also, because we're kind of early in it, you haven't had the loss of massive job losses and things that often come with a recession. That hasn't happened yet. So people are still making loan payments, et cetera, and still taking out loans to the extent that they can. And so therefore, the financial companies don't have to write off bad loans. So as you go later on in the economic cycle, at some point, there'll be job losses. People will default on those loans. And then what happens is the financial companies will have these huge losses. They'll call them loan loss reserves, and that will start cranking up. And these losses will, the earnings will look just terrible. In addition, as you go further into the recession, what will happen is there's less opportunity to make loans. So they'll get hit both on the top line and the bottom line. Okay, they'll get hit in both places because they can't make loans, so they're not making money on them because they don't have anyone to loan to, or anyone that's qualified to loan to. So that drops off. So they're basically top line growth drops off, and then on the bottom line, they're going to have these huge expenses from what money they are making. They're going to have these huge write-offs. So that's kind of how I see this with the financials. So I'm not really buying it. I'm not looking out here and saying, if I look at Citi, that, oh, this is some great thing. I think that, this is just a very short-term move this week in Citi. The bigger move is that, look, you were at 77 to 48. So you're off a lot, rightfully so, because if you're going into recession, there's going to be issues, right? And I'm not saying solvency or anything like that. Just look, the earnings and activity is going to go down. That's it. And one of the things we could look at is we could look at the XLF, which is the financial sector. So it includes a lot of the financials of the banks, but also different financial companies. And you can see right here, when you're looking at this, this is what happened in the financial crisis, right? So you look up here at this peak in 07, 08. This thing went from, I'll even be generous and say it went from 20 to a low in 09 of 4. So on this financial, so this is a huge loss, right? So this is like, I don't know, 60, 70, 80% loss, whatever. It's a huge loss. And so the point is that, and this was the GFC, the Great Financial Crisis. Now, we can go ahead and we can do a lot of debate about whether what we're going through now is going to be similar, not similar, the banks will do better. I think in some respects that it's not as bad because it's not as focused in the housing sector with as much of the shenanigans that were going on at that time. But still, they're going to have to take a hit. All right. So I'm not really buying this whole financials as anything positive at this point. It is not financial advice. That's just my view of the situation.